One of the primary IT goals of the Department of Defense and the Department of Navy in particular is to flatten the technical and cultural obstacles that prevent better data sharing across the department and across the military services. Joining us to talk about that today, and specifically how the U.S. Department of Navy is working towards those goals, is Tony Plater, Chief Information Security Officer acting at the Department of Navy, and also Juliana Vida, Group Vice President and Chief Strategy Advisor at Splunk. Tony and Juliana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wyatt.
Thanks, Wyatt. Always great to see you.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I'd like to start. Give us a snapshot, if you would, of some of the key programs among many that you're focused on right now at the Department of Navy.
Will do. Thanks, Wyatt. As you mentioned, I am the Navy Chief Information Security Officer acting. I've been here in this capacity, support Department of Navy for over 20 years. So to say that kind of tells me how far I go back. I've been a Department of Navy civilian for the last 6 years. And I just got covered 1 year under my head as the Don CISO, so I'm really proud of that. When you start talking about programs and portfolio, let me espouse on that because it's a large IT portfolio, very disparate and a wide range. We have about 800,000 endpoints. We're talking about desktops and laptops, about 200 disparate networks, 200 data centers. We use about 75 cloud vehicles to support over 750,000 seats for Navy and about 140,000 seats for Marine Corps. And as you know, we got afloat, we have a shore and afloat requirements. I like to emphasize our afloat requirements, which are somewhat unique for our platforms and environments, especially when we start talking about cloud, because we need to be able to support low bandwidth environments. What we refer to in DoD as denied, disconnected, intermittent, and low bandwidth requirements. So we have to get it right. We want to pursue the power of cloud, but we have to continually make sure we account for those low bandwidth requirements.
It's always an impressive portfolio, and particularly the challenges globally of trying to support all that. Talk to me a little bit more about how the cloud is coming into play, and in particular, how do you come in behind that functioning as a Chief Information Security Officer to make sure all that connectedness happens securely?
So very important, of course, DoD sets the framework with the Cloud Security Requirements Guide, which we follow closely, but look for other opportunities to add value. Due to our adoption of Zero Trust, starting with the Navy flank speed, the M365 training, we're seeing gains across the board for both the end user customer experience and our ability to securely operate and defend. This is really showing up in unprecedented automation and productivity. Our new direction is allowing us to work smarter and not harder. And for instance, securing identities and data. We're allowing users to connect from personal devices and the internet. So instead of continuing to build our increasingly obsolete and legacy network, we're seeing ways that we can be more effective at protecting data and workload. But we are pivoting, right? Because of all that remote telework, we have to do reskill and retrain our staff. But we want to do it in a way that makes the best out of innovation and modernization, which points back to how we're using the cloud. And the cloud offers us modernization and it offers us innovation. And from a security perspective, I'm looking at how to leverage that real-time data collection, real-time data information. So when I'm thinking about the cloud, I'm thinking about how I can do real-time understand what is the security posture of the workload.
Well, Juliana, I know you spent a long career at the Navy and later served in the Pentagon. I'd be interested to hear your perspective on what you see the Department of Navy doing now, and particularly its more recent steps in using the cloud more effectively for security.
Thanks, Wyatt. It's such a pleasure to be here talking with Tony today because Tony and I used to work together and for many years in the Pentagon. And what is really cool about this conversation is that he and I had that shared experience. And I'm talking, let's say 6 to 12 years ago. the shared experience of being very focused on, it was all legacy environment at that point, very much legacy data centers, legacy reporting, checklist mentality, let's call it, in terms of compliance. And that was just the way the DoD operated then, and the Department of the Navy. And in just that time, look at the words you heard Tony talk about. Data and advanced analytics and cloud and modernization and innovation. We weren't using those words 10 years ago. We weren't. And it was just because that's how the world was. And now this adoption by the government of the value that commercial technology can bring, particularly cloud technology, that can drive the agility, the flexibility, the efficiency, the security, all of those things that in the past, the Department of Navy and DoD used to think could only be created or managed by the government. Now there's this realization that we really are better together. The government brings their expertise, industry brings our expertise. And if it weren't that way, I don't know where we would have been at the beginning of the pandemic and today. So it's been great to watch the evolution of leaders like Tony and others in the Pentagon and across the DoD to really change the mindset and change the way that they write policy, govern, make investment decisions, train the workforce, drive culture, to see just the modern environment that they're creating and leading today. And it's really, really exciting to watch from this side, from the industry side, having been on the government side before.
Well, Tony, back to you. I envision just how you're trying to bring some order and rationality to just seemingly endless number of systems. And now we're adding the cloud to that. Talk to me at the security level of how are you trying to orchestrate those security policies, particularly now that we've continued to embrace zero trust and we've moved into more of a DevSecOps environment. How are you trying to pull all that together, and what are some maybe early success stories that you can point to?
Okay, great. Thanks, Wyatt. I want to point first, how do you orchestrate? So from a cloud perspective, the Dawn Cloud Memo of December 2020, which was co-signed by, the Assistant Secretary of Navy for RDA and Dawn CIO. So that provided a framework. And then, the services, the Navy and Marine Corps, they've updated their policies to accelerate promotion, acquisition and consumption of cloud services. So I think those are key in, starting the framework. And then, I talked about earlier how, the flank speed effort, the Microsoft 365 flank speed effort has been a game changer for us. When I look at what we're doing in the cloud, in FY21 alone, our IT spend for cloud to include labor was, over 33 million. We had 235 different workloads. So I look at it from moving with, which Julie brought up earlier, then how do we protect that cloud instance in those environments? And our CIO has been very forward-leaning in a cyber-ready vision and talking about we have to move from compliance to cyber readiness. So I'm taking what we're talking about in cyber readiness and not only applying it to our premise applications, architecture. I'm looking at how we apply that to our cloud environments as well. So we have to be able to measure cyber holistically. We have to be able to understand what our environments look like to the adversary. And then we have to take steps as well to then harden those environments. So I'm looking at how we can use current modern technology, modern architectures, employ zero trust architecture, how we can then take our naval identity services and be able to essentially be able to make sure we are able to promote the use of those identities across across architecture. So we're working that and working very closely with the Chief Technology Officer to come up with those architectures that are going to bring about our next in more secure environments.
Juliana, back to you. I'm interested, having moved from the Department of Navy and the Defense Department to the industry side. You've commented in the past that a lot's changed in the way industry is trying to help the government. Can you elaborate on what you're seeing of how the Department of Navy, for example, and the broader Defense Department can really benefit from some of the advances that industry brings to the table today?
Right. Well, fortunately, it's not just, of course, inside the DoD or inside the government that there's been this shift and just a more awareness of the value and all the great things that modern technology can bring. Every person has one of these today, and that was not true 5 years ago. That was certainly not true 10 years ago. And so now it's easier for us on the industry side to make analogies between, wouldn't it be great if you could get your government services in a way that are just as accessible, secure, reliable, even fun to use sometimes? Wouldn't that be great if you could get your government services that way? And more people can say, yeah, that would be great, because they have the experience of doing it in their personal lives. And it wasn't always that way. So now, as a common experience, just as people living in this world, more people can understand when people like Tony are talking about data privacy and data security. They kind of get it, because they are concerned about that too, with their banking and their travel planning and their, my son's going through college, the Common App for all kids applying to college. People understand in a way that was very, very hard to get people to understand just 5-10 years ago. So that has been really helpful, because what that's also done inside the DoD is bring in those top leaders and decision makers in the warfighter communities, in the operational communities, who honestly used to say, yeah, technology, data, don't know, don't care. Leave that to the OCIO, the Office of the CIO. And now they don't do that anymore. The joint staff, top brass are talking about data and analytics, and the Chief of Naval Operations and the Commandant of the Marine Corps. And all of that helps. It helps people like Tony and the Don CIO staff make what they're doing relevant to the rest of the world, all the rest of the warfighters and the folks that control the budget. And that so it's a lot of environmental changes and a lot of cultural changes that have happened along with all the hard work with upgrading the policy, upgrading the law, the administration coming out with executive orders. All of those have created this perfect, beautiful storm of opportunity where everybody can understand the value of technology and we can adopt it and move forward.
I'd like to follow up on what Juliana just said, especially when we start talking about enterprise services, because the Don is in the midst of a significant shift, how we buy services and how we use computing services. And for us, the shift will enable more centralization, governance, and general oversight over cloud consumption. As I mentioned earlier, our flank speed implementation of Microsoft 365 goes beyond just Office applications. We are excited to leverage, an integrated set of tools. We're making great use of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. This is bringing us a modern, dynamic, AI-enabled real-time monitoring protection. So I think this architecture is really going to help us make rapid progress toward our zero trust objective. And of course, address many of the things that's talked about in the presidential directive. So we start talking about multi-factor authentication, internet access from across personal devices that Julie brought up earlier. We're really, making great use of that and getting great feedback from our consumers, which becomes the end users. So all new cloud spending will be funneled through, the Naval Digital Marketplace. So we're working closely with the PEO for digital services in that particular area. And our tools are, going to continue to change so that we can make use of all those automated tools that are coming through the cloud. So looking, that's kind of where we're going there. Looking over the next 12 to 18 months, when I start talking about my priorities, number one priority is going to be that cyber-ready vision, moving from compliance to real-time monitoring and keeping an environment that is understanding that is current, understanding what we actually look like for the adversary. I'm going to be very much heavy, continued focus on zero trust. And then, of course, equally, DevSecOps. How can I leverage those cloud environments to continue to expand our use of DevSecOps?
Terrific. Well, Tony Plater and Juliana Vida, thank you so much for just spending a few minutes with us and sharing your insights on building and fortifying security at the Department of Navy and and really how CISOs like you, Tony, are keeping up with the rapid changes in the technology marketplace. So thank you both for being with us.